Board Game Geek from Essen 2012. My name is Doug Garrett, and I'm here with Z-Man representatives and Christian Markussen, who is the designer of Clash of Cultures, and of course, the inimitable Zev.
How you doing, everybody?
Tell us about your game, Christian.
Okay, well, it's a civilization game.
Yes.
And it's for 2 to 4 players.
Okay.
What we set up here is almost set up here is a 2-player game. We have the blue player here and the red player here. And if you have a 4-player game, it's obviously a larger map.
Larger map,
And it plays in about an hour per player. And you have this huge board here with all the advances. And the objective of the game is you start with your little settlement and your little settler, and then you progress into the world, and you found cities, make them grow, and collect resources, and become a famous culture.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna.
See, that was less than an hour per person. How much time do we need? Yeah.
Go ahead. Keep going. Sorry.
All right. So at the beginning of the game, you have 2 advances, which are farming and mining.
Okay.
And you have 2 food resources. The other resources are ore, and you have wood. These are the resources, natural resources you can collect from your cities.
I see.
The ideas and the gold, they come from education.
Okay.
Whenever you build an academy, for instance, you get 2 ideas, and you can use ideas to buy advances. Normally you would use food, but with ideas you can use your food for other stuff.
Okay.
So food is a very important resource in the game.
Of course.
And at the beginning, when you collect resources, for instance, the size of the city is very important. This is a size 1 city, so when it collects resources, it only collects either an ore, food, or for wood.
Okay, so depending upon what it's next to.
Yeah, so it can collect from the space it's on or any adjacent space.
Okay.
So once you reveal the spaces, you have more options to collect.
Guess we have to wait for the announcement.
Okay, that's also annoying. I don't think you get that in hole 9. You do? I don't remember hearing it.
They've turned it up, I think, this year. It's even louder, it seems.
I don't remember it.
You heard it outside.
I never heard it. I never remember it interrupting.
Okay, so you were talking about how when you turn over a tile.
Yeah, you get access to more different resources, and
so therefore, when I turn over, say, that far tile, now I'm adjacent to something and may have more resources
so
as my.
Let's say this is a mountain here.
Sure.
You will have access to 2 mountains.
Yes.
Normally, even if you have a large city, you can only collect from one of the spaces once. So in order to get 2 ore, when you're collecting, you need 2 mountains.
Okay.
And at the beginning of the game, you would probably be moving your settler or spending your food to buy an advance.
Okay.
Or to buy a settler. Now the advances, there are a lot of them.
Yes.
And the top 4 advances here open up different building types.
Okay.
So if you buy, say, writing, you can add later in the game an academy.
And if buying writing would mean that you place a cube in that spot?
You place a cube in that spot.
Okay.
And once you've opened one of these categories, you can choose any of the advances within the categories next time.
Okay.
With 2 exceptions, the ones with the red text refer to an advance within the same category. So to get roads, you would need engineering.
Okay.
And then you have the government advances right here, where you have to move through one of these. So in order to get nationalism, you would have to move from draft to nationalism.
I see. So this actually moves down rather than staying in the spot? No?
It stays in the spot.
Sorry?
You buy a new one.
Buy a new one, okay.
And you have access
plenty
to,
of cubes, yes.
Yeah, plenty of cubes. You have access to that one now.
Okay. Just wanted to see how that worked.
These advances are, some of them are color-coded. The yellow ones are mood or happiness.
Okay.
So when you buy one of those, this indicator goes up and you get a matching token.
Oh, of course. You're happy to have that.
You're happy. And that token can later be used for something called the civic improvement action, where you make a city happy. So it acts as if they're more productive.
Fun city.
So it acts as a size 2 city now.
Nice.
And the blue ones here, they are culture. So this goes up and you would get a culture token.
Okay. So it's not a sad face. So that's good. I'm glad I'm happy with that.
But you have a sad face here. They can also get angry. And they become angry if they're conquered or if you activate the same city several times.
Yes, of course.
So the way it works is you have, every time it's your turn, you have 3 actions. And one of these actions is to buy an advance. You can also activate a city to collect resources or build units. and you can move. So let's say we move up here. Now typically one of the first things you would do.
Sure.
And you flip this tile. And there are rules for how to place these tiles. They're pretty simple. But the first rule is you cannot drown yourself. So
yeah, that would be good. Yeah.
So this one would actually have to be placed like this.
Okay.
You're a good swimmer.
Yeah, I don't have the swimming advance, but
Expansion next year.
Yes.
swimming expansion. And I could use my next action to move up here to see what we have.
So you have 3 actions, and
Three
so
actions.
each step is going to be one of those actions. It's not a continuous each one.
Right.
Okay, good.
The second rule is if you can, without drowning yourself, you must place the water space next to other water.
Okay.
So you can get these large oceans for the ships.
Sure.
But in this case, when I moved up there, it has to be placed like this.
Yes. Drown.
This has 2 fertile areas, and all regions that have that have a little barbarian icon, which means that there are barbarians here. Now at the beginning of the game, they're just annoying because let's say I found a city, which might be sensible to do. I have access to water and can build a port. But when I collect resources, I can't collect resources here. That's at the beginning of the game. Later in the game, once these start to come up here and activate events, events might actually make the barbarians attack.
That's not good.
That's not good. So you might want to build up an army at one point and attack them. If you succeed in that, you get the city. And yeah, I don't have them here, but you replace one of those instead. And
There are more pieces.
there
many
are
more. in the
many
board.
more pieces. And the city would be angry because they don't like being conquered. And you would get 1 gold for each barbarian you defeat.
Very
so,
nice.
So
Okay.
sometimes having barbarians nearby might actually be a good thing. Yeah, so let's say that were my first 3 actions. Move up here, move up there, found the city. Then my opponent would now take his actions and possibly reveal some more of the board.
Sure.
Then I could start collecting resources. I get my turn again.
So, and we should maybe mention this. So, for each one of these turns, we're going to go through every player, and they're going to get 3 actions.
3 actions, move down here.
Okay, good.
When we get to the end, there's a status phase.
Yes. Okay. So you have that nice little board that tells you where you're going on. Okay.
Now I want some resources. Now I could use my actions to activate this city, collect 1 resource, then use another activation on this one, collect another resource, and have 1 action left. But I'm only getting 1 resource from these cities.
Okay.
So another thing I might do is to buy in advance and buy 1 that gives me a mood token. So let's say I go for fishing. Fishing might make sense to my civilization.
Sure.
So this one goes up and I get a mood token. That was 1 action just buying that advance. You start with 2 food. I could then use this token to make the city happy. Now I activate it and I collect 2 resources now because this is +1 in size. And the fishing advance lets me collect from 1 sea space. So I could collect 2 food. And now I'm ready to buy another advance or a settler. And I have opened up the port because I bought fishing.
Okay.
And I also have access now to the other advances. And each of these buildings has a power. And the power of the port, let's say I managed to build the port at some point. Let's do this. Now this would be a size 3 city, size 2, but then +1.
Okay.
Right, 1 for each piece, and then the happy token.
And then the happy token. The port gives me, it says here, the city may build ships. So I could use 2 wood at some point to build a ship. And it also lets me, when I collect from this sea space, I may collect a gold instead of food.
Oh, okay.
Other stuff.
Let me
yeah.
just. When it comes to collecting resources,
Yeah.
this city is next to 2 wood. If am I collecting wood? Am I just collecting like from 1 of those hexes, so I'd only get 1 wood,
Yes.
or okay,
Yeah.
I was just wondering if.
No.
But 2 are available to me.
Yes. So at a later point in the game, when you have a larger city or a happy city, it's important what you have near you.
Yeah, I just wanted to
There's enemies
clarify.
there,
Yeah,
and things blocking you.
sure.
Another advance that might be interesting for my culture is the irrigation advance.
Okay.
Because I'm next to these barren spaces. And they don't produce anything. But if I have the irrigation advance, I could collect food from those places.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, when you move units, they normally, in one action, move action, you can move up to 3 units or 3 groups of units, 1 space.
Okay.
And if you want, you can move 3 spaces by using all 3 actions. So sometimes you might be in a situation where someone has a large city that is undefended, and you use the costly 3 actions to actually conquer the city. Ships, on the other hand, let's just flip this over and see if it's a water. Let's take another tile. This one, for instance. We'll do this. Ships, when they're moved, they can move between any connected sea spaces.
Okay.
So ships, they take a while to get. You have to kind of focus on it because you need a port and you need to build the ship. But once you have it, you have an enormous flexibility because you can move 2 units with ships. So normally when you move into a mountain, you have to stop.
Yeah.
But let's say there was a blue city here. Normally he would be pretty safe because I move up there and I have to stop and he gets his turn and he can react. But when I had the ship here, I could, in one move action, move them on here and then move the ship. The ship has moved, the men have moved. Then I use another move action to move the men onto his city and I get 2 gold and I get to I exchange these pieces into my color. Again, it becomes angry. And he gets, as a little compensation, he gets refugees, he gets a settler in one of his cities.
Oh, there we go.
Not a blue one, not a red one.
Right,
He will get a blue one, obviously.
I want to point out just these nice bits and how everything fits around that central beginning city so wonderfully. That is very cool.
So when you have...
So there's another one.
It really gives a nice art to see the build.
Really awesome. That is very cool.
That was actually one of the things when I designed the game was I wanted it to be very visual what was going on.
And because each piece gives you that bonus you were talking about, it's right there.
Right.
Very visual. Nice.
So yeah, and I wanted a board. I wanted units that actually move on the board. I wanted the cities to not only grow with some counter or something. I wanted visually to show that this city is huge.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. Works perfectly.
So yeah, as I said, each of these has a different bonus or advantage. The Academy, as I said, builds ideas. And there are also some other cool things that I want to show. The ships, once you have the navigation advance, it says here, ships may move around the board to the nearest sea spaces in the direction moved. So, let's flip this over. If I have the navigation advance, I could actually move these ships out of the board and enter here. So again, if you focus on it, you get a lot of flexibility in your movement.
I can tell Zev likes this game. He's like,
you can also move over to here and stuff like that.
Okay.
So once people start getting ships and getting units, your alarms need to go up. But another important thing when designing it was that I didn't want the game too early to become just a war.
Yeah.
I wanted all the players to get a feeling of building up a bit.
It is Clash of Cultures. So
Yes.
you got to build up the culture.
Yeah.
And then
the
destroy
Clash
it.
part, now we got the culture part coming.
And I like war, but I wanted it to be something. It took a little time before you got that going. And one of the things to help with that is the tactical advance. That is actually needed to move army units. So you'll be signaling to the other players that I now have the ability to move my units.
Here I come.
Here I come, or here I might come. That's another interesting aspect. Because you would then force them to start, if they're smart, to start building units themselves and use resources on that. So combat is important, and the threat of combat is also important. One of the things I haven't talked about is you also have objective cards.
Okay.
And each objective card has a no, I don't want to show that one. That's a goodie. Each objective has an objective concerned with improvement and civilian stuff, development. And the bottom one, this one is called Warmonger, has to do with war. So you have an incentive to go to war if you can see, okay, I can actually, apart from getting the points awarded by the city, I can also score 2 points because I did something. In this case, starting 2 different battles and winning at least one.
Okay. Now, these are secrets?
They're secret.
And as soon as you accomplish it, do you then...
You reveal it. Some
Okay.
are in the status phase, which is also where you get new objectives.
Okay.
And others...
And you mentioned that just briefly, that you go through the 3 turns and then you have a status before you do the next.
That's where you complete objectives. For instance, this one, advanced here, it says you have more advances than any other player and you must have at least 6. So that's in the status phase. But Warmonger is immediately having fought 2 different armies, and so that happens right there and now.
Okay. So you could score 2 with either this or
yes, not
this.
both, not both.
Yes, okay.
And that's good. It
So
depends
one
on what
or the
you're,
other.
what you're going for.
Yeah.
We also have action cards. This one is called Tech Exchange, and it's a free action, so it's not one of the 3 actions you normally have.
Okay, so it doesn't count against those 3.
No. And it says you and another player may duplicate one of each other's advances at no food cost. Normally costs food, but if you're, and then it says you must have units or cities within 2 spaces of each other. So you might have an incentive to get closer and closer to each other, because then you can exchange the technology. And
now those again in hand?
In hand, yes.
Okay. So the other person might not know why you're getting so close.
Right.
And there's another part to it.
Yeah, each card also has a combat effect.
Okay.
So you might have this great card, but you're in a battle and you need, okay, I must keep this size 5 city.
Sure.
So, okay, you use a card for the combat effect instead. And this one called High Ground. Your rolls of 6 may be rolled again and added to the result. Each die may only be re-rolled once. And it cannot be used when you attack cities. So it's high ground, you're up high.
Right.
And you use that one because you're desperate, even though the other one is very cool. So that's one of the choices you have to make in the game.
Cool.
Then there are wonders.
Yeah.
And the wonders enter the game through the engineering advance. And that says reveal the top wonder, that's the first thing. And here we have the top wonder, which is a great library. It costs 3 ore, 5 wood, 3 food, and 5 culture tokens to build. You need engineering and philosophy, and it has a power and it's worth 5 points.
Okay.
The power,
These are big to get.
yes. You don't get them early, you get them later in the game.
Okay.
But
And again, in hand or
no, when these are revealed on the board.
on the board? Okay, so everybody
Should try for it.
try for it.
But
Okay.
engineering is a requirement for all of them.
Yeah, sure.
So players must have engineering, then they reveal one, and then they can go for whichever they want.
Sure.
And the power here is get 2 idea resources when building the wonder, and get 1 idea resource when the player to your left on his turn gets at least 1 advance you don't have. So if Seb is playing with me and he gets an advance that I don't have, I get an idea resource. So that's one of the powers of the Great Library. And the wonders here are represented with these tokens.
Nice.
And each let's take another one here. We have the Great Pyramids. And you have this. And the power for that one is that if you own this wonder, you win ties at the end of the game for victory points. That's one of the powers. There are also other. Then we have the events, as I said. They come into play when these indicators go up here. This event is a great artist, and it says put this card on the table, and then the first player to pay a culture token on his turn may AAA, that's as an action, both get a free culture advance and make a city happy. Then the card is discarded. So go out on the table, and then everybody can try go for it. But it also has an icon.
Yeah?
That's a barbarian spawn icon.
That's not good.
Well, it could be, but
not
You have a nice army.
no, that's true. That's true.
so what that would do is you have to place a barbarian settlement and a barbarian within 2 spaces of one of your cities. Sometimes you could actually place that in a defensive way, because once you attack something, you cannot move again. So you can get it in the way.
Sure.
And then you have to place a new barbarian in any of the settlements.
Okay.
Okay?
They spawn.
They spawn, yeah.
Barbarian spawn.
That's very problematic.
Half of the events are good, half of them are bad, but they're mostly made the way, so this is kind of a good one.
One you want to head toward.
Yeah, so that has barbarians, but other ones, the bad ones, might have some compensation.
Okay.
So you might find a gold mine, or you might also hit a volcano.
That would not be good.
That's not good. But I'll tell you why it might be good.
Uh-oh, might be good, okay.
Yes, here goes. First of all, the volcano cannot affect you until you have at least 4 cities. But if you have 4 cities, the card says you destroy one of them, your choice. And normally the cities are worth 1 point. But let's say this was a volcano card, and I destroy this city, so all 5 pieces go on the board. Now these pieces are, at the end of the game, worth 2 points. So I get an immediate disadvantage in the game by losing the city, but I get a massive amount of points in the end. And what that represents thematically is that this city is famous, like Pompeii. You have 1,000 years later, people are still talking. 2,000 years later, people are still talking about this this event.
Sure.
So I've tried to do some compensation here and there.
Cool.
One more thing I would like to talk about.
Yeah.
And that is cultural influence. And we'll just set it up here so we get ready for it.
The Library of Alexandria.
Okay. So cultural influence, let me start by saying what it represents thematically. No, what it does is you exchange a piece into your color of another player's.
Ew.
The city is still his. It functions mechanically as his. There's no difference there, but when we count points in the end, I get the points. And thematically, that represents, if you imagine someone digging through a Persian city, an archaeologist, and then he sees these Greek columns. And he can see, okay, Greece has had an influence on this Persian city. Greece must be a cool culture. So that's what this represents thematically.
Nice.
And how it works is, every city has a cultural influence range equal to its size, not counting these, just its size. So this one could influence cities up to 2 spaces away.
Okay.
Now cultural influence is one of the actions you can do with your 3 actions. And you would simply roll a die, and a roll of 5 or 6. Oh wait, you must target a size 2 city or larger, because you cannot exchange this one. He keeps the city, so it's only these.
Sure.
You target the city, you roll, and 5 or 6, you succeed. But you fail. But, if you have 3 culture tokens, you can add them to the roll. So this would not help, but if you rolled a 4 and you add 1, then you will succeed. In addition to that, culture tokens are also used to extend the range. So this one is, normally would only go there, but I use this token before rolling to add to the range so I can actually reach that one.
Okay.
And I would then roll, and I could add to the roll, and then I could replace it.
Very cool.
And then you need, once this is under influence, that city can no longer do cultural influence itself. So he has to use other cities to influence that back to his own color. Or just say, cut his losses and come kick my ass with his armies. That's up to him. Yeah, that's how cultural influence works. And
so the game goes over 6 rounds.
6 rounds, yeah.
With 3 turns each round.
Yeah.
And we have that, you call it the status
phase, yeah.
Status phase between them. Okay, so when we get to the end, what are we going to be? We're going to total up the points of
each city piece. Half a point for each advance.
Okay.
Your objectives that you completed.
Right. Okay.
Will be in front of you.
Already been in front of you.
Then some event cards would also, like the volcano, that would also be counted.
Right. Sure.
And then wonders. So if you build this wonder, you would have 5 points here.
Okay, and that will all be in front of you at the end, so it's very easy to see where people will stand.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic.
You just want to do a brief combat example?
Yeah, I was just going to do that. First,
just to show. We have dice for a reason.
Yes. I like dice. But that said, I've done a lot to minimize the random elements of the game.
Well, you see how I roll. So,
yeah.
But I'm playing you next game, man.
I see how you roll, but you could actually have prepared for it.
Yeah, right. There you
go. So, well, combat works by, first of all, design-wise, I had to do something simple, because when you do a Civ game, there's such a massive amount of stuff.
Sure.
If you want to do a good Civ game.
Yeah, right, sure.
So I wanted the combat system to be pretty simple to explain and people just get. So what you do is you simply roll a die per army unit you have. So let's say, I want you to roll for the barbarians.
Ooh, I rolled pretty well for the barbarians.
Yes, you did.
And what you do is you add up your total and divide by 5. That's the amount of hits you do. So I would do 2 hits and you would do 1.
Okay.
And the reason it's done that way, some games have you you do hits on 5 and 6s.
Sure.
But if you do 2 4s, you do no hits.
Right.
2 4s here equal a hit. So you can, to a larger degree, expect, you can calculate a little bit more on the outcome.
All right.
And in addition to that, you have these, the combat cards, which could give you an extra die or something like that.
Yeah.
You have the
Are you limited on how many you can play, the combat cards?
1 per round. Because if, in this case, I would not have, I would have won the battle.
Yeah.
But had I not won, I could have said, okay, I'm out. Or I could have continued on the same action, and new card, new roll. And there are obviously advances that will affect combat. For instance, there's something called fanaticism within theocracy. That gives you +2 to your roll if you're in a temple or attacking a temple. And if you lose, you get a free army.
So I would have had 2 hits with fanaticism.
Yes, but barbarians would not.
Of
But
course.
yeah.
Got 2 minutes.
Okay.
But I think we're almost done right here.
Yeah, I think we're done. That's
right,
basically
so,
it.
Christian, thank you very much. Class of Cultures coming from Z-Man Games. Thank you very much for the presentation. Awesome bits. Awesome games.
Yeah, and I hear it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm not sure,
That was a
but
lot of work on my part.
Sounds pretty good. Yeah, you're just here for the comic relief.
The dressing.
All right.
and good looks.
Thanks. All right, great.